All right, people, welcome to another edition of the New Breed Podcast. Not the world's first, not the world's only, but the world's best podcast, talking specifically about the topic of new metal. I am one half of your hosting duo, Jay Horskow. With me, I have my partner in crime, the notorious TIM, Tim Anderson Jr. Tim, how you doing?
I'm great, man.
Fantastic. Glad to hear it. And joining us tonight, we have a very special guest, ex-drummer from Purgatory, current vocalist of the band Orthodox, hailing from Nashville, Tennessee, if I'm correct. Big new metal fan, a good buddy of ours, Adam Easterling. Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Dude, happy to be here. That was a great introduction. The whole spiel about the not the world's first, not like that. That was good.
I missed my calling as a used car salesman. What can I say?
Yeah, right.
So
I don't know if there's an age limit for that though. If that's your dream, chase it. Man.
That would be terrifying, right? Yeah, I'll buy this Pinto. So we wanted to welcome Adam, and tonight we're going to do a little bit something different we haven't done before on the show. It's going to be a little bit of a unscripted. So we have a couple of things we want to pick Adam's brain about. Obviously, being an accomplished musician, we want to get some of his ideas. Also, Adam is younger than Tim and I, so his take on the topic of new metal is going to be different, right?
Yes.
So me personally, and Tim and I were talking about this before we started recording, I want to get Adam's take on some of the bands that maybe Tim and I think are utter garbage, that maybe because we were older and we had seen first and second wave, they make better sense. Maybe Adam has a different opinion of that. Or maybe there's stuff that Adam thinks is terrible that me and Tim are going to look at each other and go, are you kidding me? And then the highlight of this episode is obviously going to be Adam and I trying to explain to Tim why System of a Down is a better band than he actually makes them out to be. So first question I'm going to throw out to actually both of you guys. Tim and I just did an episode, Adam, on what ifs, right? So new metal what ifs. What if Korn had only played 6 strings? What if Ross Robinson had produced the first Deftones album? I have a question. I'm going to start with you. Is new metal as big as it got with no Hot Topic?
With no Hot Topic, as in the store?
Yes. So if Hot Topic isn't around, does new metal get the national and international cachet, right? Because this is back when CD sales were still a thing. So if you live somewhere weird, where were you going to get your fix?
I would say, outside of FYE, Walmart only had censored CDs. They were really strict on who they let in. And was online shopping even a thing back then?
I think you only had books back then.
Yeah. Amazon was just starting. Yeah. There was CD Now, which you would order something and hope it came in 3 months.
I would say Hot Topic would have gotten as big. I think it would have gotten close. I would say it would have gotten 85, maybe 80 to 90% to the level. And then Hot Topic being that not only did it have the CDs and such, because here's the thing, new metal fans, especially when it first originated and it wasn't a radio thing that it then kind of became for a little bit, new metal fans were freaks. That's what they identified as. It wasn't it was something they got called as it was. So they were yeah, I'm a fucking freak. I literally had a Korn shirt that said "Still a fucking freak." It's literally what they were. And so I think that kind of thing, all it would take is them hearing a snippet of something and then having the taste to have to chase it and find it some way or another. I do think Hot Topic, however, was that little extra push of not only could you easily find the CDs you were looking for, but you could find the merchandise, you could find things like that. And that was almost, that especially back then before the internet was really such a huge thing, was such a huge part of promotion. The amount of bands I have looked up because I saw a t-shirt and was oh, that's really cool looking. What the hell do they sound like? Is I can't even begin to count. And so especially back when that was first coming out, you literally had what people were mimicking horror movie posters and fonts and things like that, trying to make, because it was still very much a shocking genre. They're everyone was trying to outshock each other. So it was how do we scare you with this product? And so I feel Hot Topic definitely, I feel it would have still been a huge thing because the music itself was such a shaking experience. Nothing else had, Metallica broke through and brought in this whole sound that nobody had really heard before and kind of bent it. but then you take that and then you start to put all these things in music that you're not supposed to play, not only musically, but especially lyrically. You just didn't hear some of the stuff that, you know, specifically Tim and I were talking the other night about the original Korn album. You know, some of the stuff on that, it's like, I mean, that's allegedly
he was working some shit out. He was working some shit out.
That was the, you know, the album and the band that allegedly created the genre. But it's still so hard to, I almost tell people, like, you need to listen to the other Korn stuff before you go back, because you can't really, it's kind of hard to move forward past that and be like, God, that was so heavy. And not just like musically, like, oh, you know.
You bring up a good point, Adam, right? Because imagine finding Metallica with Death Magnetic, right? That's the first Metallica album you ever hear. And then you're like, I want to go backwards, right? At what point do you hit, like, I don't know, And Justice for All, and then you're like, who's this?
Yeah, what?
This is nothing like, you know, fucking Saint Anger. And then you go back further and you hit like the magnum opus of Puppets, and you're like, this is not the same band. This isn't the same band even remotely. What do you think, Tim? Does nu metal get big without Hot Topic?
No, and the funny thing about that is you've seen a lot of people open up stores of their own, like little pop. What are they? Mom and pop stores, they call them. A lot of people are opening stores like that, trying to sell like the studded belts and they would make their own like creepy, freaky shit. I mean, a lot of them didn't work out, but I think Hot Topic, you're not there. You don't. A lot of bands don't get big.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
like, and you could also say industrial, like Nine Inch Nails, Mans, and stuff like that.
They had a decent smattering. It wasn't just nu metal, right? There was pop punk in there. There was a whole bunch of Fat Wreckers stuff was there.
Absolutely.
There was, like you said, like Marilyn Manson, all that industrial bent. That I looked at Hot Topic when I first started seeing the store. It was more like a Metal Spencer's. That's how I thought of it, right? Yeah. Because Spencer's was all the lava lamps and the black light shit. You know, it was more towards like kids. And then you go into Hot Topic and everybody's got a labret piercing, right? And everybody's wearing some sort of kickwear. And there's like, you know, funny, you know, goth shit all over the place. And you're like, okay.
The stretched ears.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I seen that stuff back then. Thought old school mine are still stretched. I mean, I'm going to be 37 and I'm like, I'll just keep them. Fuck it. Whatever.
You know? I take it you've seen the meme where is it a stretched ear or an onion ring? I was thinking, have you seen that?
Oh my God.
It's terrible.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, I got to find it and make people nauseous. So let me ask you this, Adam. I want to go back to you. So when you first fell into the nu metal bucket, right, what was the first band that you found?
So I would say, and this is definitely going to show the age comparison here, I have Tony Hawk Pro Skater to thank for finding nu metal.
Okay.
There you go.
I would say the first thing that I really heard that like made sense, that like I really liked, was Anthrax has a medley song with a hip hop group on Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 or 2, and I can't remember. And we're gonna get wicked. Shit.
Was it the Public Enemy? Bring the Noise? Was it Bring the Noise?
Yeah. Bring it. Yeah. So Public Enemy Anthrax medley song was probably the first like taste that I got where I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then from there, you know, Linkin Park was on the radio around that time. And then to get into, you know, to go ahead and answer a question I'm sure will be answered down the line, Shimmy from System of a Down was the first song of theirs I ever heard, and that was on Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4. So that would probably be like the 3 initial tastes of it that I was like, oh, this is really cool. And the Anthrax thing isn't even really falling in line. It's more so kind of just the idea of like this chaotic, you know, distorted guitar mixed with hip hop elements. It's kind of what makes that feel like nu metal to me.
Yep.
And because I mean, Anthrax, I don't know if you would consider them. I wouldn't consider them.
No, that's thrash.
They're
thrash
just a
metal.
thrash metal band.
It's
but
80s.
like that particular song is the way that it's presented is very nu metal-esque. And so yeah, I would say that would be my best bet. Would be that. You know, so Tony Hawk, and then my neighbor actually. I grew up with like a big field in my backyard and like a farm behind that. and on the other side of the field were my neighbors, and they would come over and hang out all the time. And we got in the car once, and the older brother of the two brought Hybrid Theory, and Paper Cut played for like 45 seconds to a minute. My mom was like, this sounds like prison music. We're turning this off.
And that was what she thought sounded like prison music, right? Because that's a for all intents and purposes, that's a radio friendly album for all intents and purposes.
Tracks. Some of them are pretty intense. I would say Paper Cut starts off pretty. You got to realize, and you may not know this background about me, but Tim and I had talked about it. My family was in the country music industry, and I'm in, at the time, Hendersonville, Tennessee, which is a suburb north of Nashville.
Okay.
So, like, it's not that album is, I mean, especially when you compare it to, as we've spoken of, self-titled Korn record, when you compare it to that, it's like eating Oreos next to, pebbles. It's just, you know,
right,
you can,
right.
But it was just so foreign and something that she hadn't heard, because being in this, very Christian Baptist family that I grew up in and all this kind of things, it's like, as soon as you hear rapping, you're probably just assuming the worst.
Yep.
Throw really heavy start and some samples behind it, and then somebody's yelling. They're like, nah, I don't want to hear what Satan has to say here,
Right.
So,
especially since country is, to me, a very laid back genre. And
used to be.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, to me,
Nowadays,
it's kind of a laid back genre.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, the whole point of it, and the whole, it dates back to, like, what do you sing on your porch?
Yeah.
What do you sing in your cabin? What do you sing in the fields? That's what it, was for the old country folks that, are trying to hear something relaxing after they ate too much. So.
I'll tell you what, though, it seems like country people like to have a lot of fun, though. Like they like to, it seems like they like to get out there and, get a little buzz on, have a good time. And
when you say country people, do you mean country music fans?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, not your family, Adam. He's not like
no. Yeah,
my family loves to have a great time. But it's just, the difference is country music fans, especially nowadays, associate just honky tonk and all that. It doesn't matter. There's people, I've met more people in Nashville in cowboy boots and cowboy hats that sound like Tim than I have actual, like, Southerners. Because they just show up and they're like, oh man, I'm here to have a good fucking time. And they're like tipping their hat at me and shit. I'm like, dude,
That's
I was
great.
like, look, you go sing all you want, but God, I haven't owned a cowboy hat or cowboy boots since I was like 6 years old, and I'm from here. Like, it's such an odd stereotype, and it's all because of country music. But so yeah, country music fans associate it with just getting shit housed, and that's where they have a party. So,
okay.
That's basically what I meant. Yeah. Are you trying to say I have a very bad Philadelphia accent? Is that where you're going with that?
I'm trying to picture
question-
Tim in
okay.
cowboy boots and a hat, and it's not
no
working,
way.
man. It's
No
not
I bet
working.
he'd still wear the Eagles shirt.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen white and green hats. People will show up for so like when the Titans sucked the last decade, the games would be mainly away fans because the tickets were cheaper than if you were to go to one in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And then everyone wanted to visit Nashville. So when the Sunday rolled around that Titans are playing your team, the opposing cities would just come out in droves. And I mean, there was a lot of cowboy Eagles gear. I don't know where they got it, but it exists and it's hideous.
I'm sorry. I will die on this hill. A good pair of cowboy boots really is like wearing a pair of slippers. I got a pair, and it really is like wearing slippers.
But the difference is a good pair of cowboy boots is not a cheap expense.
No, mine were expensive.
See, what people do here is they'll come down to Broadway where all the honky-tonk bars are, and there's literally a store, something – it has the word boots in it. I don't care to remember it, but they have literally buy one, get two free. So, like, you're buying, like, the borderline plastic cowboy boots.
Yeah.
It's garbage. But, yeah,
Anything
nice cowboy
buy
boots
one,
when
get
they're broken
one.
in.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Anything
just
buy
like-
one. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Jesus Christ.
Anyone buy one, get two free is a piece of shit in my book.
Kind of makes you wonder what's what are they hiding in those boots?
What are they trying to get rid of?
Exactly.
So I got another question for the both of you. So Tim and I have an episode where we're going to come up on, Adam, where we're going to talk about the resurgence in that nu metal sound, right? And that is a very vague term, right? The whole idea of the nu metal sound. So I'll start with you, Tim, and then I'm going to go to Adam. Why do you think that sound is making a resurgence? Is it a generational thing? Is it we've hit the 20-year mark and now it's ripe to be plundered again, or what do you think?
I think a lot of bands like, we'll say Orthodox, Code Orange and stuff, they grew up listening to that as the same as like we did. And I think it goes great with their mind. And when they start writing riffs, it just comes out. And because there's a lot of people that say, oh, they're a hardcore band. Like, I'll talk to Joe Hardcore about this, like Harm's Way. I'm like, dude, do you not hear the nu metal on that? And he's like, you're fucking wrong. It's a hardcore. Like, he refuses to say
have so much nu metal influence.
Dude, they do.
Yes, they
and
do.
Last time I was talking,
it may not be where it's coming from, but like it does have similarities.
Yeah, and last time I talked to him, he got like pissed off. He's like, "You're fucking wrong." I'm like, "All right, man. Like, I'm not gonna argue with you about it, but like, they have nu metal roots. Their new record is fucking nu metal." And
is incredible. If we're just throwing that out there, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. and then we talked about it Wednesday. Like, your band, like, as the records went on, it got more nu metal. And you're man enough to say absolutely. And there's a lot of people that don't. And like I said Wednesday, it really pisses me off. Like, don't be scared of it. Like, it's not bad to be nu metal. Yeah, it's not bad to have influence in nu metal.
You know what I think? I was thinking about this before we got on because I knew I was going to ask you both this question. I really think it's because, Tim, we came into hardcore from metal. Nu metal for us was second nature, right? So whereas the Cro-Mags, Bad Brains, Minor Threat crowd might look at that as like heresy. That, what do you mean Korn isn't that bad? What do you mean Limp Bizkit put out a banger of an album? To us, because we came from that world, it's not really a big deal. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. I think you should be proud of it, right? I mean, this was one of the most successful musical genres in the last 40 years. Absolutely. So, whereas other people would look down their nose at it, right? Like, go on about fucking what's his name? What does Jimmy make fun of? The guy from Minor Threat who always wears the hat in the back of his head. He looks like Mickey from Rocky.
Ian
MacKay. Yeah. Go on about Minor Threat. But it's not bad to say, you know what? I grew up listening to fucking Korn and the Deftones. They put out some good fucking albums, and I'm going to steal that shit and make money off it. So what do you think, Adam?
I don't really think it's a whole stealing thing. Not I'll just put this in there. I don't think it's a whole stealing. It's an influence. Yeah,
it's an influence. Yeah.
What
do you think, Adam?
I think so. I think what is almost hard to pinpoint about what is and isn't a nu metal influence is the fact that nu metal in itself is a collection of all different dynamics of pretty much every type of metal you can think of is incorporated into nu metal in some way, shape, or form. And so it's kind of like with Joe's argument about Harm's Way isn't nu metal, so on and so forth. Sure, they're not. And if you look at the other records, they're not a nu metal band. They're very much a metalcore band. A metallic hardcore band. But there are definitely riffs that sound like Iowa and self-titled Slipknot stuff. Mm-hmm. But again, at the end of the day, is that nu metal or is that a metal band, using a low tuning with a groovy delivery? Where does it doesn't, it can be one thing without it being called that same thing. So it's kind of like you're both right in your own way. As for why I see it kind of making a resurgence is kind of in part with how you guys were just saying, the punk hardcore scene back in the day would be like, why the fuck are you listening to this? Why do I care if Dreadlock and Kilt is singing about how sad he is? Like, it's kind of like, that was a similar thing for my generation of our scene. Not necessarily saying like don't listen to it, but it was more so like it wasn't such a huge popular thing at the time that it kind of just got overlooked. And if you did listen to it, it was kind of just like a thing. It wasn't like nobody really cared about it. But I think a huge part of why you're seeing a resurgence now is those people that did get picked on are now in those bands and they're like, I can write whatever the fuck I want. A, and then B, it's not a major music genre anymore like it was. And so you're seeing it in an underground scene now because it's kind of like bell bottom jeans, you know. They'll go out and then suddenly they make their way back in through the lower level, and then they're starting to show up in high end stores. It's the same way with any kind of music genre. It's the same way with, you know, it's kind of like how what's the band? Old emo punk band is having more success now than they ever have. I can't remember what they're called, and it's driving me nuts. But regardless, they're from like the 70s and the 80s, and they're making their way through rotation to where an underground scene picks it up and starts to pull it back up. And so that's, I think, why we are noticing it more, is because we've all been a part of the underground metal and hardcore scenes. And, you know, it's not like you don't hear any metal and hardcore bands sounding like Nickelback, because that's the new metal band that's still up top.
Yeah.
But you can get plenty of other influences from the things that are no longer considered like the must-haves of the genre. And I think that's a big part of it, is that the underground can now be unique while using it. Whereas when it was on the radio all the time, you just kind of sounded like, I feel like, and this is it's kind of like, you don't want to play your music for your aunt who's never heard your band before, and her be like, oh yeah, that sounds exactly like this band. And then it actually do sound like that band because it's popular. You know, like I feel like that's kind of like the whole thing, is you don't, as a hardcore band or as a metalcore band, as a artist in general, you don't want to put out something that's deliberately a reinterpretation of something. And if everyone has the potential to hear that, then you have even more chance of falling into a line of just a photocopy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Makes sense, yeah.
So let me ask you this, Adam. Tim and I have been down this rabbit hole before. What are a couple bands that come out of that originate in that new metal genre that you really thought should have been bigger than they actually were? So I'll give you an example, right? Tim and I went back and forth. I am a huge fan of the band Snot. I'm convinced that if Lynn Strait doesn't get killed in that car crash, Ross Robinson does that second album and they actually blow the fuck up. I'm convinced, right? That's my band that I thought should have been bigger than they actually were. Give me an example or a couple, if you have them off the top of your head, of bands that you really liked that you never understood why they didn't, from the genre, that you never understood why they didn't get as big as you think they should have.
You know, it's kind of hard to think of. You know, it's like when you really compare it, because new metal really, you knew acts from almost their appearance as much as their music. All the acts that kind of came through for me are still considered like big within the genre, but not big amongst other bands. So it's like, I personally think Mushroom Head should have been much bigger than they are, even though they're a very well-known band. The whole shtick gimmick, and it's like I said, I think I even said this to Tim the other night, some huge hit songs, then some where I'm like, man, y'all really had nothing. So like, but I also feel like that's kind of the whole idea of new metal, is you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's one of those bands that had every dynamic of what was popular, but put it into a totally different atmospheric execution. And I feel like they should have been a lot bigger than they got.
And that is why, exactly what you just said, is why they're one of my favorite new metal bands. Still to this day, they're just like you said, they should have been way bigger. And I think if they would have took that Roadrunner deal, you kind of don't see Slipknot take that spot, because that's basically what happened. You know, Mushroom Head doesn't take the Roadrunner deal, then Ross brings it to Roadrunner for Slipknot, and there you go. So they kind of missed out on that deal, and I think there's kind of like them saying like, shit, we should have did that like nowadays. Because look at Slipknot, they're fucking huge, dude.
True, but I would also the other side of that coin, if I'm going to be a contrarian, is Mushroom Head has ground out a solid, continuous career. They, as far as I know, they haven't had some of the drama and some of the like the breakup, the hiatus that Slipknot has had, right? They've consistently put out new albums and done touring. As far as I know, they've never really taken like that big 4 or 5 year break. I could be wrong.
They just put a record out 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, they just had one come out, which actually isn't bad.
Yeah, it's called A Beautiful Life. It's fucking awesome.
Okay, I did not. I didn't even know that. I'm literally going to save that on my Spotify right now.
Do it, man.
So I think
the record's great, man.
Yeah, I think that That's really weird. Like, why would they not take that deal? And but back to my point is they were able to grind out a consistent. I'm sure they all do that full time, right? They don't have day jobs, which is I think what. And I'm Adam. I'd be curious to your thoughts, but I'm pretty sure that's what every musical artist wants, right? Is I want to be able to live off of my craft. I don't want to have to sling pizzas if I don't have to. I want to make enough money to live at least a decent life, take care of my family, and do my thing, right? And if they were able to do that, God bless them. Right? God bless them. I bet you they will kick themselves for not taking that Roadrunner deal to their graves, but hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah.
True.
I would almost say, though, another thing that is, it's kind of like, trying to think of a good way to, like, make this a comparison. Like, Slipknot is to Mushroom Head what, like, seltzer water is to Sprite. So like seltzer water is something you kind of like have to develop the taste for most of the time. It's not something the first time you try, you're like, oh, this is delicious. But Sprite, you know, is one of those things where I could probably count on my one hand the amount of people that don't like Sprite that I met my entire life. So it's like,
count me in. I hate Sprite.
All right, well, there we go. But it's just one of those things where Mushroom Head is like Slipknot is. They're both crazy bands, but Slipknot is the more approachable of the two. Whereas Mushroom Head is kind of like if I hadn't already been into other nu metal bands when I heard Mushroom Head, I probably wouldn't have understood or appreciated it the way that I could if I heard Wait and Bleed.
Yeah, I mean, their record 13 is in top 5 records for me, nu metal wise. It's just a perfect album. It doesn't really go far off of any genre, like, because they do combine a lot of the genres together. You get a little bit of a metalcore feel, especially their newer stuff.
There was some stuff that, I mean, I hope this doesn't come off as insulting, but some of the stuff that I heard while I was bouncing around YouTube trying to find some of their catalog, there was some stuff that almost sounds like Ghost in regards to approachability. Right, like a music that has a harmony and a hook. I mean, say what you want about Ghost and the whole fucking theater that they do, that whole aesthetic. You know, it works for them. It works for everybody.
Badass.
Yeah, in order to succeed, a band needs a look, right? Which is, I honestly think why some of the hardcore bands that are so talented don't do as well as they should, is because if it looks like the 5 of us were just sitting at the bar, we turn around, walk up on stage, pick up instruments, and start playing. It doesn't matter how good you are. There's nothing that creates that cognitive click that says, these are the guys that all were bouncing around in masks, or the Mudvayne guy with the bugles glued to his face, right? Like, or, totally different.
Wayne Static with the dreadlocks and
hair.
Dreadlock, the goatee down to his crotch. Yeah.
So while I'm bringing that up, do you think, Adam, and I'll ask you, Tim, as well, do you think that aesthetics are as important or more important than your music? Can you get by with questionable? Can you get by with like kind of run-of-the-mill milquetoast music if your aesthetic stands out?
You can get more known, but it's for the wrong reasons. It's kind of like putting out a shirt that says, if we put out a shirt that said Orthodox sucks, then people are gonna be like, do they? And they'll listen. It's like if you have this big gimmick, but you can't back it up with your music, then it's kind of like you put too much focus in the wrong side of the ratio. But I think that there's bands out there like Knocked Loose right now who doesn't have a gimmick. That's just how those dudes dress when they're walking down the street and they get on stage and blow it the fuck away.
Yeah.
I feel like that's almost more of an attribute to, you can't like walk up like you just walked out of the bar on stage in a small room with very little people and really make an impression. But like, if you've got the crowd and you deserve that crowd, you can go up there in a Hanes t-shirt and gym shorts and people are going to eat it up.
Yeah.
I think that the gimmick can add to things, like how Code Orange has kind of recently started to really dive into, to becoming their own real part of Roadrunner, almost as a way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Like how they're really they just started doing like the masks and all things like that. And that gimmick is cool. It works really well for them. With their sound, they found a perfect way to look exactly as like chaotic, heavy, while also collected, but also glitchy as they somehow have created their music. But then you have the contrary of it with a band that's, I would say, very equal sized bands between Code Orange and Knocked Loose. where Knock Loose is just like, I'm going to kick your ass for this entire record. And I'm just going to dress like a well-dressed dude on the street. And that's just that's all they have to do. So, I mean, it's not to say that it gives or takes away, but I feel like if you don't have good music, then why the fuck are you dressing up?
Good point. And I think you're right. I think Code Orange with the newest album has reached that point where their musical skill matches their aesthetic to the point where they truly have cleaved their own path and they've gone their own way. And no matter where they go, it's going to be their own lane, right? To steal a Jamie Jostaism. They've created their own place themselves. And, God bless them. I hope it works out. It's pretty cool.
It's wild because everyone in the band of Orthodox likes Code Orange a lot. We're all fans of Code Orange. Do we feel that we personally draw influence from them? No, because they're a newer band and we're kind of going further back. But to show the ground they've already covered, we can't be in an interview without somebody saying drawing from Code Orange, and that just shows how much they're traveling up. And it's really been cool to see because we played a show with them on the they did it was them and Twitching Tongues did My World and whatever Twitching Tongues' second LP was. They did like a co-headliner tour, and we played that tour in Nashville. It was like 200 people at the show, which is awesome. It was one of my favorite shows we played in Nashville. But to see them now, just 3 or 4 years later, I mean, it's
a different monster.
Yeah. I mean, they really have just found a way to where no matter what the hell they do, you can't say you saw it coming, and you can't say it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, good. Well said. So, what's the other questions here? I got so many. Tim, I feel like I'm talking the whole time.
No, you're good, dude. You're good because on Ill Street I do all this, so I'm loving this, man.
So great. So now let's have a mock trial here. So Tim, you're up for the prosecution, and you're going to explain why you don't like System of a Down.
Oh, you're gonna do this to me right now?
Yeah.
So I just could never stand his vocal approach, and I know that's why most people like them.
Surge?
Yeah. I don't know their name, so I'm sorry.
Way to do your research, Tim.
Yeah, I never really liked his vocal approach. I don't really care for the lyrics. I think they're the most overrated band in nu metal ever. They're just so boring to me. I just never got it.
That blows my mind.
I went to
that band boring.
I went to a co-headlining show with Deftones and System about 5 years. It was probably longer than that. And Deftones played first, or they co-headlined first, and then System went on, and I literally fell asleep 3 rows out the whole time while my girlfriend and my buddy were jamming together. And they woke me up at the end. They're like, "You ready?" I'm like, "Yep." I slept through that whole thing. That's how much I hate that band. I can't stand
Okay.
So they just do nothing for me. And what pisses me off about that is a lot of people are like, "Oh, you don't like them because they're are they Armenian?"
Armenian.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
People say that you don't like them because they're a different race.
Yeah, because that's the thing nowadays. You gotta, you gotta find some reason to call me a dickhead. And I'm like, dude, I don't care what they are. I just don't like them. You know what I mean? I don't like the whole goofy lyrics and goofy persona kind of shit. And that kind of sounds weird coming from me loving Mushroom Head and stuff.
Yeah, there is a little bit of incongruence there. Yeah.
No, it is. But the way System does it, I can't stand it. It's like Will Ferrell. I hate him. I think he's not funny at all. That's what System of Down is.
Now we're just starting to think that you just have bad taste.
Well, maybe. You like Will Ferrell too?
I think that there's definitely there are some jokes that he makes where I'm like, maybe not, but Step Brothers, Talladega Nights are 2 undeniably hilarious movies.
I'll tell you what though.
Yeah.
One System of a Down song I do think is good is Toxicity. That is a good track.
Oh, yeah.
But the rest of it, like that first album, everyone raves about it. It does nothing for me. And me and Jay are actually going to do a deep dive on it where I'm going to be forced to listen to it 5 to 10 times, and maybe I'll come around. You know what I mean? Because I'm older now, and maybe I'll come around, and you'll be the first person to
for that. By the way,
all right, we'll call you out.
Absolutely, and you will be the first person I will text and say, "Hey, man, I was wrong," because I'm not afraid to admit it. You know what I mean? But
you will be sending that text because you are wrong.
Okay.
All right, Adam, for the defense.
Okay. So goofy lyric things obviously are going to stand out the most when you think about things like violent pornography, everybody fucks, like things like that, vicinity of obscenity, where treat the feet, beat the meat. Like, yeah, they have all these really weird songs. And honestly, like, if I'm going to skip a song, I'm probably not going to listen to violent pornography, partially because, like, again, with my upbringing, hearing a song called Violent Pornography, I was like, oh, I have to listen to this 1,000 times right now because holy shit, this is insane. So I've heard it too many times at this point. But my question to you is this. You may get bored. It's already hard to like instill a different opinion in you if you don't like Surge. Because if you like, he has a very different tone of voice. He is undeniably, no matter if you like how he sounds or not, he's undeniably a phenomenal vocalist.
He's very talented. Yeah, he is.
The range of just not only from his singing to just the weird noises he's even capable of making, remarkable. Now, I feel like one thing that's kind of hard for a lot of people to approach is the fact that they are Armenian and he literally uses Armenian scales. Yeah. Serge and Darren, I believe both were in like Armenian choirs growing up. And so that's where he learned his melody. That's why if I try to write an Orthodox song and I'm like, I'm going to try to sing like Serge, I'm like, I don't know what notes are supposed to go over this. This is not like, it's truly a completely unique approach. And it's kind of like we said before about how nu metal is not so much about how it sounds, but how it's delivered, because System of a Down doesn't sound like what you would, if you were to describe how a nu metal band sounds, System of a Down isn't there. But because of how manic it is, it fits into that category because of the fact that they started off with the crazy paint and all that. And then also I can't think of a band outside of Rage Against the Machine that has made stronger political stances than System of a Down has. From literally they recorded Boom, the video for their song Boom, in the middle of a protest march. And they have protesters singing, the song to it. And so, yeah, it's the thing that's hard to push is because their lyrics are very strange. They have songs like Prison Song, which is very deliberately like, here are these legitimate statistics about why the prison system in the U.S. is fucked up, it's racist, all that kind of, like, all the different reasons for that. And then you go deeper into or even shallower, and they have lyrics like Hypnotize, which was a single. Starts off very, again, deliberate with, why don't you ask the kids at Gentleman Square? Fashion was the reason why they were there, speaking on a protest. And then the hook for the song is, I'm just sitting in my car and waiting for my girl. Okay, so it's like it's like a very different, the way that they can range things from that, where Hypnotize has that song, but then also has, it's Hypnotize and Mesmerize both are like a collaborative album. Technically, it's like a double album. But then you have songs like Radio Video, where it's, hey man, look at me rocking out, I'm on the radio. Hey man, look at me rocking out, I'm on the video. To be able to execute both of those things and have them fit is kind of like the same idea of having a heartfelt tragedy in the middle of a comedy and still be able to make you laugh. And not only that, but the reason that I laugh at when you say that you're bored is because, like, it's kind of the same. It's one of those things where if you're listening to System of a Down for the first time and you try to guess what the hell is about to happen, you can't. You have no idea. They are a genuinely musically unpredictable band for a first-time listener. And from the fact that their first debut single was Sugar, which has like a jazz beat and just a bass line with a, like, almost, I want to say like a samba type guitar. Like,
it's very
it's not a
weird
metal song, but then it ends in him like in this really dark place. And
yeah.
all the while, when you watch the video, it's all completely political. So it even shows you that there's things that you may think you have on this, but you have. There's no telling how many different ways you could split a System of a Down song into what it actually means.
But when I think of System of a Down, I think, okay, take nu metal, make it Armenian, and then give them a obscene amount of cocaine. That's what I think because like that first album, right? So first time I saw them was they opened Ozfest 97.
No, it was it's 97.
When they opened the side stage. This was right when the first album
came out. They were pushing for the new album. It wasn't even out yet.
Yeah.
So the singles were out, but the album didn't come out till I want to say 98.
I was like, this is like being on fucking cocaine, right? Because it's all over the place. It's bouncy. The Armenian, like that sound that they pull from, which you remember there was another band called the Apex Theory, which is basically the same ethno background, sounded totally different. To me, it was fucking bonkers. And it was bonkers in a way where to Adam, your point, you never knew which way it was going to go. I think the first album was good. I think the second album is brilliant. I never got into Hypnotize. Mesmerize was a little bit too bonkers for me, right? Like the whole, I liked it, but at this point I was moving into, that was what, 90, what year was that? No, that was 2005, right? Yeah. So at this point I'm fucking Poison the Well, Hatebreed, right? This is what I'm listening to at that point. So I've kind of gotten away from this.
Mesmerize was too bonkers while you were listening to Poison the Well.
Yeah. And like the song, what is it? This cocaine makes me, I can't feel my face.
I literally have lyrics from that tattooed on my arm right here. Killers never hurt feelings.
That's funny.
Yeah. I remember just being like, again, maybe Tim, they're so left field of what we're typically used to hearing that maybe that's why it creates almost discordance. But I'll tell you though, I saw them, they co-headlined the Metal Alliance tour with Slipknot right after Iowa came out, and it was like American Head Charge and Rammstein, and I think it was like Union Underground, a whole bunch of other new metal bands, and they played first. They were jaw-dropping. They were fantastic. The place fucking cleared out before Slipknot came on. It cleared out. And this is Slipknot touring off of Iowa, right, where arguably they're at that cusp, right before they tip over into you're finding Slipknot t-shirts at Walmart, not just Hot Topic. And when System finishes and the place kind of empty, and I remember standing there looking around going, these guys are going to be fucking huge, right? Because it was an arena show.
Did Toxicity come out before Iowa, or is it the other way around?
Right about the same time.
I know it was the same. It was both 2001, if I'm correct.
Yep, it was right around 9/11.
Yeah, so Toxicity, which that's kind of, I don't know if, Tim, do you know the story of the protest that kind of pushed them into further popularity?
No, I was actually Googling when that came out for you. Yeah, 2001. Yeah.
September 4th, 2001.
System of a Down put out, literally a week before 9/11, they put out Toxicity.
Okay. And
they were supposed to have like an outdoor release party in LA. And they had multiple street teams and just a huge draw in Los Angeles, especially being that they're from there. And the crowd got so big that the police didn't allow them to go on stage in fear of a riot, and then wouldn't even let System on stage to tell them that they weren't going to play. And so then a legitimate riot ensued.
So they fucked up when they were trying not to fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that is one thing that kind of pushed them into even further popularity. It was like, wow, people are destroying property because they can't see this band. And then also they were worried that they wouldn't get, I think, Chop Suey. They were like worried about lyric things to do with it because of how obviously earth-shattering 9/11 was. You know, like the movie industry was scared they were never going to be able to show a gun again. They were scared they were never going to be able to have an explosion in a movie again. They legitimately, these were thoughts. And System of a Down was like, I think it was Chop Suey has the I don't think you trust in my self-righteous suicide.
Yeah.
They were concerned people were going to they were like, oh, this isn't going to work. And it ended up, because of how politically charged that album and that band is, it just pushed them into superstardom. And if you look at their numbers today, this is an interesting thing. If you look at the numbers today on like Spotify, where you can see how many listeners are there, System of a Down has millions more than Slipknot and Korn and all of those bands. And they haven't put an album out in it'll be 15 years this November since they put an album out. And they still have millions more listeners than the bands that are still touring, still putting music out.
Are they a pro-Trump band or not? I don't know that.
So there's been varying quotes in the media where John Malakian has said, the drummer, I think that's his name.
John Dolmayan. Darren Malakian's the guitarist.
Darren Malakian, that's it. Who I'm convinced does tons of cocaine, and I would still love to hang out with him because he is so unique in everything he does. He came out and made some quasi pro-Trump remarks, and Serge is obviously anti-Trump, right?
Very much.
So it's been a very interesting listening to them like kind of debate in the media and bicker. We're not getting a new album. It's not going to happen. And at this point, it's better that way because if it does come out, it's Chinese democracy. It's going to be a wet fart no matter what they do. Just let it go.
I would say
I've seen that today. Yeah,
it's very interesting because like they're both very different beliefs, but the fact of the matter is every stance they've ever made is for the idea of pushing peace upon the world. So they also are trying to like kind of draw it back of like, hey, not everyone is going to see exactly how you see things, and so they're trying to like still show love and support for each other through having these bashing opinions.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like the theory that's going around, is that the disagreements within the band have kind of now fallen on like, how do you have the rhythm section of this band play be 25% of the effort and be against every word that's coming out of Serge's mouth?
Yeah, it does make one wonder, right? Like, and you're in a band, Adam, so you can probably talk us, right? That strong dynamic, right? You have four people who have strong opinions. You know, they have very unique ideas on how their art should look, sound, be portrayed, be absorbed, be engaged with, and trying to put ego aside to have that creative, just enough for creative tension, so you get that uniqueness. But at the same time, it can be self-destructive. I mean, you look at bands that, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards really don't like each other. Stefan and Gino from the Deftones have had, they've had their run-ins. And honestly, I think that's probably fairly healthy to a regard, because you don't want, you avoid the echo chamber if everybody always agrees at the same time. So I could see where, like, and then when you get famous and you get money, I'm not famous and I don't have money unless New Breed podcast takes off. Adam will give you a percentage. I would assume that when you introduce that money, it's where people start getting weird. People get weird, especially if you don't have them. But it's, you were talking about 9/11. I looked up. So Iowa came out on August 28th, which was a week before. System of a Down comes out on September 4th. The one band that whose album got completely killed, which I'm sure is going to break Tim's heart because it came out around 9/11, was Machine Head's Supercharger.
Ugh. That record is terrible.
It's terrible.
That's
terrible.
A piece of shit. I would rather listen to someone's shit than that record. Bad.
And to add insult to injury, the lead-off single off that was Crashing Around You. And it was a video of all buildings collapsing. So they lead off with that, right? Talk about just not miraculously, because that would imply like something good, but just serendipitously being at the anti-serendipity, right? Being at the complete wrong place at the complete wrong time with the complete wrong message.
Yeah, that's rough. That's a rough one.
I thought you were going to say Slayer's God Hates Us All, because that came out around, I think that came out on September 11th. Yeah, it was a Tuesday. It came out because back then records came out on Tuesdays. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that came out on September 11th.
Who drummed for that? Was it Dave Lombardo or was it Paul Bostoff?
I think it was Bostoff.
Because I remember the video of Kevin Talley from Misery Index and all that, like, trying out. And, he came off that fucking Chimera album, which is fucking brilliant. But he hits so hard in that fucking – it's the video from them in the studio where they brought him in to play the first song. and it was like, Jesus, this guy's a fucking monster.
Yeah, he is.
You drummers, Adam, you guys' brains work in a completely different way than the rest of us. Like the whole fact that you're balancing and using 2 feet and 2 arms in different directions. God bless you.
Yeah, thank you. That's the only skill I have where I get to use that. Don't really get to go in the opposite directions with all your limbs that often. So
so do you miss drumming at all? Do you miss it?
I just started playing drums for another band. I was telling Tim about, which I don't know if you got to listen to it or not, Tim, but it's called Youth Collapse.
I got to listen to like 30 seconds of it, and my phone kept ringing. I'm sorry. I will listen to it though.
It is the kind of like a revamp of the Mongoloids.
Okay.
So Daniel Colombo and Greg Falchetto are the other members at the moment. And as of lately, because obviously the pandemic and such, it's just been a studio project, but I've just recorded another song on drums. It was the first time I'd recorded drums in 2 years, like 2 weeks ago. So
okay.
I'd absolutely missed it. I hadn't actually played in about a year since up until that point. So I didn't realize how much I was missing it until I like sat down to like play the song. I was like, wow, this feels really good.
And Adam, you drummed on Cold Side of Reality for Purgatory? Yeah,
I did.
I always joke with Tim. Purgatory and Zabalba are two of those bands where I am convinced I am not tough enough to listen to, because it is just fucking aggressive, like offensively aggressive. Like I put that album in and I'm like, I really should be listening to this. I got to put in like some fucking Yanni or something, because this is not. I'm not tough enough to listen to this stuff.
I remember when we wrote the song Down for Mine, I was like, this is the hardest thing I will ever be a part of, 100%. And I mean, if it makes you feel any better, like I was in the band, you can listen to it. I'm like tough. I can take a beating, but like I'm not a hard person. So like I promise you, like Matt and Josh and Brian are the three that really make that band seem exactly as it sounds. And I mean, if I ever found out that I had 7 people heading to my door, I would only need to call Matt to come help me and we'd be fine. Like it's ridiculous. Some of the stories he told me about him growing up. He's like, one time these like 4 dudes were like trying to jump me, and I was like, all right, I can do like one or two of you at once. And he's like, I got out with a black eye, but I don't think any of them were unconscious. Like, just crazy. I don't know if that's actually a story he told me, but it probably is.
Sounds about right.
But I played drums on that. And probably the only notable release outside of that is Sounds of Loss from Orthodox as well. So,
which is still a great album. I still listen to that fairly frequently. So speaking of Orthodox, right? I want to cover off a little bit about Orthodox. Now, I know you just were interviewed by Tim for Ill Street News, right? Mm-hmm. Our listenership is a little bit different, right? Because it's all metal fans. We are pulling in some old heads like Tim and myself. So I want to give you a second, Adam, to talk a little bit about Orthodox, right? Like, so a little bit of history about where you guys come from, and then specifically your newest album, because Tim and I were putting together a list of bands that we can tell are new metal influence, that if you liked Mudvayne and Korn and Slipknot, you might want to check out A, B, and C, and your album was on it. So if you wouldn't mind, can you give us a little bit about, I don't want to say an elevator pitch, because that means you could boil down your entire musical career and with Orthodox into 30 seconds, but just give us a little bit of history of the band and, how you ended up with the newest one, which is Let It Take Its Course, which is fucking heavy as the title goes. And then what's coming up for the future, if you wouldn't mind.
Started off as a metallic hardcore band. We all loved like Foundation bands like that. We just were like, oh, this is what we want to play. And, for a while we were very much like a metallic hardcore band. Years down the line, we toured our asses off of like 2 different EPs and a split with a band named Breaking Wheel, which is badass. Incredible band as well. And we kind of were getting to the end of it where we were like, we don't think if this next release doesn't get any buzz off of it, it's probably like a good sign to just nix it. And that was when Buddy from Unbeaten Records came to us, wanted to put out an LP. We were only planning on doing like 4 songs, but he's like, no, we want to do like an LP. And that's when Tyler and I started writing. Tyler Williams started writing what became Sounds of Loss. First song we wrote off of that album was The Approach, which is the second to last track. And it's actually The Approach and The Taking, which is all one song. Originally, we just kind of split it for the record. But that was the first thing we wrote. And we were like, okay, so this isn't a hardcore song at all. And we were like, but like, what do we do from here? How do we incorporate these things? And we kind of just got to a point of like, same mentality, we'll put this out, and if it flops, it flops. And we just kind of wrote exactly what we wanted to hear, and Sounds of Loss came about, and a lot more people liked it than we thought would. And it pushed us to, Tyler ended up leaving the band to go join Counterparts, still in that band, still kicking ass with them. And then from there, it was kind of like myself and Daniel Colombo, who I mentioned is in Youth Collapse with me, kind of started writing some new songs for Orthodox, because he was the one that produced, engineered, mixed and mastered all that stuff for Sounds of Loss. And he then moved up to Nashville after that. So we started writing these songs, and for Let It Take Its Course, it was kind of like, we don't want to try to like recreate Sounds of Loss, but like the obvious dynamics that worked, that were risks, we need to just push. Mm-hmm. And those were most of the dynamics that people liked were the new metal influences. And so when people ask what's the new album like, I'm like, if you liked the last one for reasons that I think you did, mm-hmm. you'll like this one even more. And so that was kind of where we started really branching into it of like, we're already kind of stepping away. Let's really try to break away from the pack here and bring out the influences in new metal that people aren't touching on. And that's kind of where Let It Take Its Course is at. So,
and like I said Wednesday, man, I'll say this first though. Purgatory is one of the hardest fucking names ever. I love that name.
You know what's funny is I actually wanted to name Orthodox Purgatory, and then I looked it up, and Purgatory was already a band.
Oh, that's crazy.
And it was that band.
Yeah, that's funny.
And then it's even to throw it back even further, before we even started recording, I was talking about Purgatory and Orthodox playing the same day at Midwest Bloodfest, and being like the only two like actually like really heavy bands aside from the headliners, and both of our sets kind of flopping. And that's where me and Matt met, was that fest, playing back to back. And then down the line, Purgatory was on tour with us for a couple of days when we did a tour with Knocked Loose in 2015. Matt and I grew even closer there. And then eventually he was like, hey, do you want to play drums for us? I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's do it. And that's how that happened. So
yeah, that's funny. And I want to say, like I said Wednesday, Sounds of Loss is one of the hardest record titles ever. I fucking love that, dude. That's so good.
That whole aesthetic you guys had, Adam, with the very minimal to the point of being maximal, the designs, like the cover is very simple and elegant, yet very I put it up there. For me, I think one of the most brilliant album covers I've seen in the last couple of years was the last Uniform album. If you've checked it out.
I haven't.
I got Adam right now. Adam Schmidt is listening and screaming at me, but because he went to high school with Burdan, the lead singer. But
the Long Walk. No.
Yes, it might be The Long Walk. It's
Is it?
It's
like
a kid
looking through.
It's a kid,
no
and he
admittance?
said, yeah. It says Kingdom of Heaven, no admittance, something like that. Like that's heavy, right? But you guys with the barbed wire and the skull and it's just very simple, but it's simple in a way that it catches the eye that makes you say, "What is this?" Like I can't. If I can't judge the band by the cover, I'm even more intrigued, because that's like, what the fuck curveball these guys going to throw at me? But yeah, I don't want to rehash your Wednesday night conversation, but I thought the album was fantastic. I think some of the deep cuts were just as strong as some of the earlier stuff. And Tim knows this. He's sick of fucking hearing this out of my mouth. I'm very much a side B guy. I'm very much curious to see when you flip the record over, what do the bands bury on the second half? Because I think there are some bands that actually hit their stride right around track 5, track 6, and then they go fucking bonkers towards the end. But like when I look at the album, one of my favorite tracks off the album is track 7, Look at Me, right? It has that almost swing riff.
That is my favorite.
And like that whole, I was mowing the lawn listening for the third time again today. The third time of the last 2 days, so I wanted to get prepared. And just that whole swing guitar riff, right? Like you could almost see people moving to it. It's like, That's fucking pretty bonkers. So now, man, it's the new metal influence is there, I would say, from an old guy who grew up listening to fucking Korn and all that shit. But at the same time, you definitely, I think you summed it up best, Adam, when you said that we took the things that we know we're going to catch people's ear and we doubled down on them. And I think that actually helps differentiate you from some of the other stuff that's out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So let me ask you this question, right? So we've talked about your album. So if there's someone listening who digs into Orthodox, they say, you know what, I actually like this. You know, it's a newer band hitting some of the notes that I like. If there were other modern bands that pull from that kind of same level of influence, right? That same pool of influence, who would you suggest to them and say, hey, go check out this band, check out that band?
Let's see. The band named Prison from Florida.
Okay.
Very much new metal influence. They even were on tour with Soulfly right before we did a tour with them.
Nice.
That's a great one. Varial's album In Darkness is very much a new metal influenced record that's really well put together.
Great record.
Left Behind.
Yeah,
Not
that's the one I was going to go with.
Type band. Left Behind is the White Zombie of the underground hardcore scene to me.
Dude, that new record is so fucking heavy.
Oh
man, dude.
I think they did themselves a serious disservice releasing it so late in the year because, you know, after a Halloween, people are starting check out, right? The holidays are coming, your brains are.
Yeah.
That thing is a fucking monster. And his
voice
is unreal.
Oh, Zach is an annoyingly good vocalist and also the most playful bully I've ever met in my fucking life.
He's a cool dude too, man.
Oh, I love that dude so much.
Yeah.
He cracks me up. He'll just FaceTime me out of the blue and just leave me on FaceTime and we'll just talk while he sits there playing video games for an hour. He's such a hilarious person. But
I want to say something real quick before we not that we're ending, but before when we do end, I'll stop recording. We got to talk about boundaries real quick off air.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
have been, and we don't even wait till off air, right? If Matt's
we can do it now. Fuck it.
Adam, I have been begging Tim to get them on. I think that fucking EP they did was absolutely brilliant. For a dude that must weigh 90 pounds soaking wet, his voice is fucking monstrous, right? I saw them up in Trenton, and he's not a big guy, but he can fucking project. And that last song on that fucking album, I literally want to throw everything that's around me not nailed down. It really is good for a bunch of young kids to put out something like that.
Have you heard the new stuff that's not out yet?
No.
Oh.
Am I in for a treat? Dude,
here's the thing. I love Boundaries. I was not the biggest fan of My Body in Bloom until I saw it live. This new album, I shit you not, guys. I don't have words for it. It's
okay, good.
Unbelievable. Between them, and we haven't spoken about them at all, but between them and Chamber, and then 30 Nights of Violence just put out an EP yesterday. That's the three metalcore albums of the year. I would say. They're
all geographically not too far from you, Adam, right? That's Kentucky, Tennessee area, right?
Chamber and 30 Nights of Violence are both Nashville. Those are all good friends of ours. We literally have had members of both of those bands play with Orthodox. And then Boundaries is Connecticut.
Yeah, Connecticut. So Tim and I were talking about that the other day. That new 30 Nights of Violence album is fucking great. Maybe it's me and what I've been listening to lately. I hear a lot of Misery Signals. That second song, the intro, is straight Deftones, right? There. That's White Pony. It is fantastic. Chamber, I was completely blown away by when Tim first pointed me to the original EP, right? Not with the newer singer. He said, "Yo, check this out. It's really good." And Tim will keep me honest, Tim. I am Tim, and I said, "Dude, this is good. I think what they do next is going to blow things out of the water." And then they did that 2-song release, which was totally fucking monstrous. And I said, "Dude, these guys are hitting on all cylinders."
They are the band beater, dude.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, what's crazy is that I've gotten to sit down with Gabe. Gabe was one of my roommates for a while as well. He's filled in with Orthodox. That's one of my favorite people in the city. And he sat down and played me the album, and we just kind of went song by song and talked about it. And they cram in more just violent pieces throughout this new album than they've ever put out, all while throwing in instrumentalism that you don't see bands in this world really do, but it's all in an approachable way. You know, they're already gaining so much steam for being such a new band in like the hardcore and metalcore world. But I honestly feel that musically it's still on such a different level that it misses some people. And I think that the moment they get on a legitimate like metal tour, it's going to be a different world. I think that band has potential so much further than an underground scene.
They were slotted to open for, wasn't it like Rotting Out, them, Fuming Mouth?
Yeah, they were on that.
Yeah, and then the
Creeping
coronavirus
Death
strike.
and Acacia Strain.
Yeah.
They were out
Acacia
on that tour when it happened. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a huge tour.
Yeah,
anything Acacia Strain's is gonna be a big draw. They're a huge band.
Sneakily. They're sneaky.
Yeah.
To me, they're like, I call them like like I put them in the same bucket as August Burns Red, where I never would have thought when I first heard these bands that they have gotten as big as they actually are. Right?
Yeah.
Like August Burns Red is fucking sneaky huge. Sneaky
Yeah, they are.
And
You know what's funny?
Massive.
You know what's funny about Chamber? We had the drummer on. I think his name's Tyler.
Hey, you guys had him on while he was on tour with us.
Oh, did we? Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty positive we were in California and he took the phone call for the podcast while we were on tour with them at the time.
Oh, okay.
It was their first tour.
Yeah, because I remember interviewing them and they weren't too big at the time. And I said to Adam after, I'm like, them dudes are going to be fucking huge one day. And then literally like 2 weeks later, they were everywhere. Fucking Revolver, like just everywhere, man. I'm like, I told you, man. I could just like sense it sometimes, like, and the way he talked, it was so, like I could tell like them dudes meant business.
The show that they played in Philly at Creep Records was completely packed. Like it was packed out the door. I think it was them, Vamakara. Was it them, Vamakara? It was a whole bunch. It was like a murderer's row of bands. I think it was like Reign of Salvation was there.
They did a tour with Vamakara and See You Space Cowboy.
Yes.
Might have been. Yes.
Yeah.
But I just remember the place being packed, and me and Chris Triel were in the back, kind of giggling, like, "Jesus, look at this place!" Like,
yeah, they're ridiculous. Dude.
Yeah, ridiculously heavy.
I think nothing against the old singer. I think the newer singer fits them better.
Jacob is the man. So Jacob, actually, what's funny about that tour is he was not the singer on that tour. He was playing bass in Orthodox.
Oh, okay.
And they parted ways with their singer in the middle of that tour, and that's where Jacob started singing for them.
Okay.
And it just stuck. And I'll say, you guys were mentioning like Poison the Well, things like that. Have you heard his old band Dwell?
Yes. Oh, dude, yes. Absolutely.
Okay, just making sure. Another phenomenal band where Jacob shines right through, and the bassist for that band, Ryan Stevenson, actually plays in Sanction now.
Okay.
Yeah, another incredible. He another vocalist where anything he reaches for, he grabs. So.
Dude, let's talk Sanction for a second. I know we're going off the new metal thing. We're going to get right back into it. But yeah, it's all
our
good.
new metal fans have to get modern someday,
exactly.
Right? You can't just listen to fucking Black Sabbath all your life. You got to find some new shit. Yeah. So, yeah.
The Sanction EP before the full length is so devastatingly brutal. Like, I listened to it when it came out, and I was just like what the fuck was that? And then when they played This Is Hardcore out, like, they were like a last-minute addition on there. Mm-hmm. They fucking destroyed that entire fest. They were the best band on that day. I think they were the best band on that fest that year. I think that was 18, was it?
Yeah.
Dude, they are so fucking disgusting live. And I swear people were getting taken out in fucking stretchers and shit. It was fucking ridiculous, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Go on, Adam.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, we played, what was it, TNT Fest 2018, and the lineup actually went, it was a fucking power hour. TNT Fest was in Texas, and it went, at this point in the day, was Sanction, Us, Queensway, Judiciary.
Jesus.
And when we heard that Sanction was going to be playing before us, we were like, okay.
Like,
sure.
why?
Yeah. Oh my God. But
and I'm sorry. I meant to say I'm surprised people didn't get taken on stretchers. That's what I meant to say. I don't want to say that and people be like, no, they weren't, because that's what I meant to say. Yeah.
No, they literally, Sanction is one of those bands where, especially now, they've dialed in their like live tones and are just painfully loud live.
Oh man, dude.
It is one of those bands that just, even if you're not the biggest fan of it, like you can't deny the impact of and how in your face it is when you get to like actually see it.
Yeah.
And I would say I almost felt like I played better for our set because of how pumped I was getting watching that band.
You remember the other band that people were in, Separated?
Yeah.
I liked Separated.
Dude, that 4-song EP was one of my favorites. That was so good, man.
First time I saw Sanction, it was them and Left Behind with Walls of Jericho and First Blood.
Oh yeah, I remember that show.
And there was like it was sad, man. There was like maybe 30 people there. It wasn't a big turnout. And Adam was there. Adam Schmidt was there. And I feel some local Philly band, but Sanction was amazing. Left Behind was amazing. And I'm a big fucking First Blood fan. And they were fucking awesome. And then I was like, I'm not sticking around for Walls of Jericho. But yeah, they that album is fucking ridiculously heavy. I had some qualms with the last full length. I think it could have been I think they could have chopped 4 or 5 songs, made it an 8-song EP, and really, really gotten in. But to your point, Adam, they've done so much touring that as a musical unit, they're all marching on the same path,
very in sync,
and they are sickeningly loud. The only band I could think that I've seen lately that comes close to that is fucking Fuming Mouth. Fuming Mouth is like, when they played Philly when they came through with Creeping Death, and they played the Coffee House, and it was like an early week show. It was like Monday or Tuesday or something. It wasn't very full, and me and Chris are in the back of the room with our mouths open, just like.
They were.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Breaking Wheel was on that tour, weren't they?
I think so. And then they dropped, and somebody else hopped on. I think. Well, Rest in Piss, I think, played the Philly date, or somebody else. But it was the point where they finished playing, and Chris and I were both sort of just standing there looking at each other. And I went, because I remember my exact words. So I looked at him and I went, "Yeah," and he went, and he goes, there are going to be people that are going to be really upset that they missed this show because it was so loud. They are so heavy. So heavy.
One of my favorite shows of like years past was the tour that Chamber was on with us. We actually crossed paths with that tour in Maryland. And so we had a show that was us and I Am, Chamber, Creeping Death, Breaking Wheel, Fuming Mouth.
Wow.
And then a couple of locals. And it was a night, to say the least.
Dude, just them 3 bands: Breaking Wheel, Creeping Death, and Fuming Mouth. Ridiculous.
And then you add in Orthodox and I Am, who was another great band that I don't think gets the attention that they should.
Yeah, they don't at all, man.
That last album was great. It was great.
Oh yeah,
it was great.
They're a Texas band, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's
go with this one. Let's get back into nu metal real quick.
Okay.
The first episode we did was called The Big Four. So you have the Big Four of, Metallica, Slayer, Anthrax, and who's the other band, Jay?
Metallica, Slayer, Anthrax, and Megadeth.
There you go. Now, we did an episode on the Big Four of nu metal. In your opinion, who would be the Big Four of nu metal? Obviously, you're going to say System isn't there, and then we have to have 3 others.
System of a Down, Korn, Slipknot, and Linkin Park.
Okay.
I'll take that. Linkin Park is really dark horse pick, but they did. They were probably one of the nu metal bands that got big and got on the radio. Like that first album is great. The remix album is great. Meteora is great. I mean, after that, I lost interest.
Yeah, Menace to Midnight Nun. I'm kind of like.
But those first couple albums,
But rest in peace.
For the first record, I love that first record to death. So it's so good.
It's good.
He's one of the best singers of his time. Unfortunately, he passed and stuff, but one of the best singers.
Literally, Tim, we did the interview Wednesday night. Thursday, I was driving back home from North Carolina, and like the first thing I put on was Hybrid Theory.
Oh, there you go.
I was like, why not? Let's do it.
You know what's the first thing I put on Thursday? That new Korn record. Dude, I was going to text you, and I was just so busy. That record is fucking good, dude. It's
Really?
I told you.
Man. It is
really?
Do I need to tell him the same thing?
Yes, tell him.
Okay, so Nothing is, in my mind, the best Korn album since Issues.
Okay.
Honestly, no. What was not?
You
what's
said
the one before
since
Issues?
Follow the Leader.
Since Follow the Leader.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why is because the band itself has grown musically in terms of their actual how to present a song and how to orchestrate music and play their instruments. John Davis was a great singer then, is a significantly better actual singer now. But they really went back to their roots on this album, but they didn't try to repeat it. It was like they drew influence from themselves. And not only that, but the album itself is just heartbreaking because the majority of the album, from what I can gather, is about Jonathan Davis losing his wife.
Losing his ex-wife, yeah.
And the ending of the record is him crying that he failed.
Yep.
I said the same thing the other night. It literally wells me up a little bit. I'm like, man, it's just so emotionally heavy. But the thing is they don't try to do anything that they did back then in a way that they can't execute now. So Jonathan's not trying to push his vocals in ways that he may not be able to. The band isn't trying to throw in chaos that they did when they were on meth or whatever. They just literally take these stronger elements that they developed back then, and it's just a polished version. And honestly, it's the first album since Follow the Leader that I can say doesn't have a song worth skipping.
It's really good. I'll man.
Check it out.
I'm not just saying it because you said it, dude. That record, I was I'm in an apartment because, I do maintenance and all that, whatever. But I paused my headphones. I'm like, wait a minute. Let me restart that one because that shit is good, dude. It reminded me of Follow the Leader, how Follow the Leader is a decent record, but it has a lot of songs where you have to go back and go, I'm listening to that again. And that record did that for me, man. That's a very good call on your part, man.
Yeah. And
very
it's
good
also
record.
I have a theory that this is the reason they went so far back for their influences is because I think this is the last Korn album, personally.
Oh, yeah, and you were saying that.
Probable.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And in the first track, he says he's crying in that one, too. And I'm like, oh, wow,
there.
man.
It starts off with bagpipes. I mean, what's more point than that at that point?
Yeah.
But, it's a very emotionally draining album for totally different reasons than what they started for. But, the first track is called The End Begins.
Yeah.
So that could mean
that
could mean either it's speaking on terms of the loss, and which is totally reasonable. I could be completely wrong. Or it could also be that is the beginning of the end of that band. And I mean, they are 25 years past their first release now.
Wow.
I mean,
it's a long time.
It's not to say that it's time, because I'll listen to Korn until either I or they die first. I don't care. I'll keep putting it out and I'll always listen. But I think they have enough respect for themselves and their creations to finally be like, all right, we're at rest.
Yeah. So. Let me ask you this, since we're talking about Korn, the legacy of that first record. How big of a record is, I mean, obviously we know they pretty much invented the genre, if you want to say that. But how much of a legacy is that record? And you could also add Life is Peachy in there as well. Without them two records, where do you think we sit in that genre?
It's kind of just you don't know because who comes up with it and how is it delivered from there?
Exactly.
Because I mean, you trace any band even just a couple of years after that album comes out. I mean, the self-titled Slipknot album just honestly musically just sounds like if Korn played a higher tempo. You can't. There's no way to predict. It's kind of like saying what would baseball be if no one ever invented a curveball? You have no idea.
Yeah. Now we talked about this last week too. Do you think if they started out without the 7 strings and the self-titled record was on a 6 string, how much do do you think people go, it's just another band? Or do you think they're just as popular? I mean, because I don't know if you play guitar or not, but the difference between a 6-string and a 7-string is a fucking huge difference. Yeah. So I pretty much think without the 7 strings on that record for that band, they don't really go where they went.
I would say,
well, like how much of how many people just liked it because of the 7 string? You know what I mean?
That's fair, but first question is, how many strings does the bass have on it, regardless?
Well, 4, 5 at usually,
because that is a driving factor. But also, I think they had the chance of still making it there because they're only in drop B. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure most of their songs are in drop B.
It's ADG. It's ADG.
So it's drop A. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's more of a standard A. It's weird how it is, but
standard A sharp, drop B, all same family.
Yeah.
Very executable. You can execute that with a 6-string.
Absolutely.
And so, do they have those droning notes? Maybe not, but also the production on that album is not that great. So
that's why I like it.
I think you can still get away with it because like it's not, the 7-string is there and it adds a cool dynamic of sound, but I don't think you would be missing it so much if the picture isn't that clear.
Okay. Now speaking of 7s, is that anything that Orthodox has thought about?
Yeah, I mean, it's not an unreasonable thought. We played a show or two with a 7-string, but I don't think we've ever written anything with it, but it's not really necessary. I feel like we kind of try our best to, like, one of the things we are proud of is being heavy without it being spoon-fed.
Yeah.
And, it's not to say that a 7-string means you're going to spoon-feed, drag your knuckles and all that kind of thing. But it's like, I feel like having that would kind of take away from us having to stretch a little further to be creative.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, you got.
That's not to say that there's literally, if you listen to, a very quick example, Obscenity, the first song on Let It Take Its Course, starts off very heavy, and then goes into like a little hi-hat part. And then it hits with like a crushing breakdown. And there's a reason that breakdown feels bigger. And it's because it starts off with this breakdown that's heavy and all this stuff, but then we literally take extra guitar tracks that are tuned an entire octave below what we are usually playing and put that in there for effect. So there are similar things in the production that is there. But as for like the live performance and such, I feel like a 7-string it's not missed. Okay. And if it's not something that we need, then there's no need to like really jump at it,
Right.
Okay.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up, Adam, because that fucking monster, the Moab, right? The mother of all breakdowns, the 2-minute and 3-second mark, right? Of Obscenity, where it's just like, Jesus
that one.
Christ. Yeah. It's like
the tremolo.
Yeah. Just pick things up, start throwing them, right? Like that, to me, that's up there with, when I think of monster breakdowns, Tim and I've done this, the most recent one I would compare it to is the breakdown in, Savage Intolerance by Nails, where he goes from the squealy guitar part to just starts crunching. Like literally, you just want to grab to throw things. Like
the first 2 Nails albums both end with a song that has a riff at some point that they just, like, every Nails song is this long, and then the end of the last song of the first 2 LPs at least has like a 5-minute song where they find that one riff and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to play this until we're annoyed. And it doesn't matter because it's just as crushing the 7th time you hear it as it is the first time. And that's one of those.
Their music is offensively heavy. That's the best. That's the best adjective I can think of to describe it. It's offensively heavy, where it's just like, let the fuck Todd Jones, like, does this guy ever smile? Right? Because it's just minute and 3 seconds, minute and 12 seconds, 2 minutes. And then they have like the one weird song, which is, like you said, a segue. It's 5 minutes. And then it's, I think it was Band of the Life. It was 90 seconds. Then it was like 13-second blast. And then it was like 2 minutes. It's like, where the fuck does this intensity
go? Yeah, it's like the first single they released off of, is it Unsilent Death? Is that what it's called? is the first 2 songs of the record, and I don't think it breaks a minute 30.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's just savage grind shit right in your face. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a good friend of mine who is convinced that the best way to tell if a band's album is worth listening to is go to the second track. He skips the first track every time he listens. The first time he listens to an album, he goes to the second track. So if it's an intro, he goes to the third track because he says, they're going to start off with a banger straight out. He goes, what does the second track sound like? And Tim, we were talking about doing a deep dive on the Slipknot self-titled album. I argue that Eyeless, the second song, right? Can't See California, Marlon Brando's Eyes. I argue that is even crazier and more intense than the opening track because it is
Sick.
Yeah, Eyeless. Yeah, Eyeless is the second song because
it's the number Sick and then Eyeless.
Right. It's that fucking warp speed. Like you said, it's Adam. It's just faster, and that's where that album I think is so impressive. It pummels and it doesn't let up. And you remember at this point, there's Limp Bizkit is big and Glassjaw is coming around the corner and they gripe about how Road and Order treated them comparatively to Slipknot. And then you have the Deftones are still floating around. And then Slipknot comes out and it's 9 dudes in jumpsuits and they're coming from Iowa. And is that guy banging on a fucking keg? And what is going on? And then everything is like 200 BPM and Joey Jordison's blasting out in the background. And you're like, what the fuck is this I'm listening to? It's it's a prison riot with drums.
Yep.
I'll tell you who has consistently the best first, second track pairing of any band I've ever heard, any genre, consistently, Every Time I Die.
Oh, okay.
I would take that. Yeah, I could see that.
That band is the track listing, the ideas that they have and how they arrange their songs. Because you want to talk about a band that isn't a nu metal band, but has just as many just counter opposite dynamics as a nu metal band would have, is Every Time I Die. And I'm going to look up the song title so I can be exact here. But on the album From Parts Unknown, they have that song. They have the first song starts off The Great Secret.
Mm-hmm.
And that's literally the first line is blow your fucking brains out. Over and over again. That is insane. So that's crazy opener. But then, you even go to New Junk Aesthetic where they have Roman Holiday, which is this long, droney, just letting Keith Buckley say some unreal shit like he always does. And then it goes into The Marvelous Slut, which is a phenomenal song. Just
which
all
is
in the same. Why do I give myself away? And then my personal favorite, you can't see it because it's right here. I have a Every Time I Die tattoo that is a Bible with the logo, and then the spine says Dilemma. And it's because of X Lives. You have Underwater Bimbos from Outer Space, which is the I Want to Be Dead with My Friends. And that goes straight into the song Holy Book of Dilemma, which lyrically is one of my favorite songs of all time.
He is
absolutely ridiculous.
Horribly underrated lyricist.
Absolutely.
You even go back to Hot Damn is one of my favorite albums of all time. But
go back to the EP with the lyric wise too, man.
He has the images he paints in a very abstract way without sounding like he's putting just daisy chaining together words is absolutely brilliant. And I swear that last album was one of the best albums they've ever done. I swear Map Change is the best song they have ever done.
Let me grab something. Hold on. I'll be right back.
I am totally floored by them.
That EP, what's it called? Burial Plot Bidding
Burial
War?
Plot Bidding War, yeah.
So fucking underrated. That is one of the best EPs ever released, in my opinion, man.
Yeah, I
don't know if you've ever seen this.
Is that good? I haven't read it. I've seen it, but I haven't.
So this isn't his actual publication. This is the so his last book. You could pre-order it with a copy of this, which is Low Teens, written in the order or put in the order of which he wrote the songs.
Okay.
And because I don't know how much of the story you guys know about how he wrote that and what was going on.
But his daughter was sick or something, right, Adam?
Well, his wife was, to my knowledge, and I may have some details here and there wrong, but to my knowledge, his wife was very sick and pregnant. Or no, that's not what it was. She gave birth to his daughter, and then she got very sick, and the daughter wasn't doing well either. And so he wrote the majority, to my knowledge, of this from a hospital, dealing with all of that. And I know that Will Putney went to New York or wherever they were, and they like rented a house for them to record there because they needed to record to meet the contract, and that was like the only way they could do it because he couldn't leave the city because he had no idea what was going to happen. And so that's like he has a line that says, I tightly ripped into this world. I was born again as a girl, talking about like his daughter. And there's the song, I forget titles all the time, but he's got the song that they put out as the single, C++, Love Will Get You Killed, all talking about like, hey, if you feel you got to go, then go. Like, I'll make it, you know, I just want you to have peace. Like, it's just a very emotionally heavy album.
And that's Low Teens?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Low Teens.
Yeah,
that actually came out while we were recording Sounds of Loss, and I listened to it like 7 times the night that it came out.
God damn.
I'll be honest, they lost me a little bit with I loved Hot Damn. I loved the one after that, which is Gutter Phenomenon, and then after that was
Big Dirty.
Big Dirty. I was okay, and then the one after that was
New Junk Aesthetic.
With the hands. Yeah, those two to me, some good songs. Take it or leave it.
You should go listen to New Junk Aesthetic again.
And what's after that, Adam? Was that
after that one was the
X Lives from Parts
Unknown,
and then the newest one. Yeah, I am just like, I never would have thought that those guys would have ground out the career that they've gotten, and they've remained completely unique and yet far enough in both worlds that they can basically play with just about anybody, and they still put on a fucking amazing show.
Yeah, they're incredible live, man.
Yeah. Did you see that last tour they did, Tim? Where it was them.
The one Sonny did?
That was the Christmas thing. It was them, Turnstile, Angel Dust, and Vane.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it was like, what? Talk about ridiculously heavy.
They had just came off tour with Coheed and Cambria, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a wildly crazy live band. It's funny, like a lot of people clown on that band, and I have no clue why.
Oh, same
reason people clown on System of a Down. It's just brilliant that you just don't understand all the time.
Nice one, Adam.
yeah, you're right. I love Every Time I Die though. Like I said, that EP is fucking amazing.
And we've been going long, and I don't want to take up Adam's whole night, but Adam, you brought up Prison Song, which I know you guys have covered. When I first came across that song, it was a sampler given out at the WSOU 15th anniversary birthday bash, right? And this is before Toxicity comes out. I put it in the CD player, and there's that first crunch, and then it goes silent. And we're in the car. My buddy goes, yo, is this thing fucking broke? And then before he could even say broken, they go and jun, 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 jun. But like, I literally thought, like, I got a bum copy. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? My radio's broken? Like, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they Tim, I look forward to doing the deep dive. Adam, we'll give you plenty of warnings so you can come on. They do have some moments. They really have some serious moments where it was like, you know, there are a couple of tracks on Toxicity I fast forward through, but then there's some other ones where you're like, oof. God damn.
Toxicity is the one though, in my mind. Like if you have to deep dive on any of their albums, at least it's that one, because there is.
I'm gonna write that down and put it in my Apple Music tomorrow.
Yeah, there's a collective chaos. While it was literally, they took like the, again, manic, just spontaneous craziness of the self-titled and melded it into what became just a monumental, probably in my opinion, the best sophomore album of any band I can think of.
Wow.
And you take Prison Song that starts off on a heavy note, goes into Needles, which is so catchy. It goes into Deer Dance, which is the heaviest song the band ever did, which also has.
Is that the Wild with the Eyes of the Horse on the Jet Pilot?
No, that's Jet Pilot.
Okay.
Deer Dance is the one that is, they're literally talking about the pushing little children with the fully automatics. They like to push the weak around.
Okay.
There's no more relevant song in today's society than Deer Dance in my mind. Like,
okay.
Persecuting, limiting and protest, political police, president-sponsored fear, battalions of riot police with rubber bullet kisses, baton courtesy service with a smile.
Yep.
Like it is so still just dead on what is going on. And then from there it goes to I think Jet Pilot is after that, that's kind of, there are definitely still some songs on the album that get a little wild with, Chop Suey being one of them. But to even have a song that's so chaotic and crazy and just nuts as Chop Suey, and for it to be that successful. And Tim, I guarantee you're going to hear that song, and I bet you know the chorus.
I just wrote it down. Yeah.
Like, even if you hate it, you can't help but get attached to it. But it's also, that's what's so crazy about that band is they have songs that get stuck in your head that musically you would never imagine that to get stuck in someone's head.
Yeah.
Didn't they have a record called Steal This Record as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was all.
I thought that was it.
Steal This Album.
Yep. Yeah, it was all like B-sides and that sort of stuff, right?
It was actually originally supposed to be, I believe it was supposed to be called Toxicity 2, and it got leaked. And so the Toxicity 2 is the leaked version of Steal This Album, and that's when they just went in and said, okay, we're just going to perfect the songs that have been leaked because they were not finished yet. Okay. And so they perfected those songs and put it out as Steal This Album.
Now let's go in.
Let's great one as well, but
let's go in this direction. My favorite band of all time is Deftones. What do you think of them?
It's the same. It's one of those things where that's a band that I have never been an avid listener, but I can't deny how great they are.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I'll hear other people listening to it in the van, at a show, in a house, wherever, and I'm like, oh shit, that song's really good. But I never find those songs where I'm trying to like listen to the album. And so there's never been a time where I've listened to it and be like, this is not that good. It's just never been something that's kept me locked in. But it's still undeniably brilliant musicians.
Absolutely. There's nobody that sounds like them. There's nobody that can pretend to sound like them, and that's why I love them so much. Bands have tried, but
I put them in that I put them in the same bucket, and this is gonna sound weird until I explain it. I put them in the same bucket of bands like Converge or Meshuggah. In the sense that they always find a way to stay 2, if not 3 steps of the people that are going to copy everything that they do.
Yep.
Right? So think about it. Converge consistently sets a bar, and then, okay, we want to sound like Jane Doe, and then they go into You Fail Me, which was not the same as Jane Doe. And then from there was No Heroes and all that sort of stuff. And the last album was fucking amazing. Meshuggah they do Chaosphere, which leads to, well, fuck it, we'll get rid of our bassist, we'll play 8-string guitars, and we'll just drop everything into the fucking basement as far as tunings, and then you have nothing. And then we'll track it all live, and you have Catch 33. And then you have Thomas Hake relearning how to do drums, which is Obzen, right? So they stay a step ahead. Same thing with the Deftones. Every album, they do something a little bit differently, and they go a little bit in their own lane, and they keep just a couple steps ahead of their imitators, which I think is it's an impressive subconscious goal to even go after.
It's brilliant shit, man.
Tim, did you check out that Drunken Wald Rock performance?
No, not yet.
I'll send you the EP. Apparently it was like one of their most famous shows. Chino got beaten up by security earlier in the day. He was absolutely shithoused. So like the in-between song banter is borderline like just verbal, just whatever. Like he's talking about like Death Angel and all these like Bay Area thrash bands, and you could tell he's like completely shithoused. Yeah, so it was an interesting listen.
Well, let's go this route before we get out of here, because like you said, we don't want to keep you all night. Well, you're an hour behind, aren't you?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
You guys are the ones that are past your bedtime. I'm still good.
Nah, dude, we're good, man. We're usually on. We usually start our second episode at this point. So I always like to get into this kind of thing where like Fred Durst. Are you a Limp Bizkit fan?
I'm not an avid, I'm not a huge Limp Bizkit fan. I actually, what was it? I was on a podcast not that long ago and made the comparison that if Linkin Park got bullied at a skate park, it was Limp Bizkit that bullied them.
That's funny. What do you think about? Do you think Fred Durst is the most hated individual in the whole genre? Like even like people just think like that red hat.
Yeah.
Like I hate that fucking guy. But like why? Like why is he so hated? Like in your opinion?
It doesn't help that Eminem constantly raps out about beating his ass.
Yeah.
That doesn't help anything when you have one of the world's most successful hip hop artists telling a band that is using hip hop to climb the charts that he's not shit.
Yeah.
Also, it's one of those things where delivery is such a key thing, because like had System of a Down wrote a song that said they did it all for the nookie, it would have been a completely different delivery and everyone would be like, oh, that was really weird.
Yeah.
But when you make that like the like shades and hat, like I did it for the nookie, and like pointing at the camera and trying to make that like the cool thing, it's kind of like, I don't dislike the song, but you can't deny how corny it is.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
It's one of those where that's the kind of music that like you want to roll your window down and feel like you're the shit while you're listening to it. But if you pull up beside like a group of girls playing that song, they're gonna look at you like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, all right, buddy.
Yeah,
Now
I'm trying to figure out what it would sound like if we had Orthodox pretending to be System of a Down covering Limp Bizkit's Nookie. Like I can't imagine what that would even come close to sounding like. I might have found your next B-side there, Adam.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I was gonna say, I think we're all very fortunate that will never be a reality. But well, I think another thing that a lot of people hate about Limp Bizkit is the song "Rollin'," because I bet you there's more people in the world who sing the "Keep Rollin', 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 Rollin'" thing to themselves. That's all they know of the song. So that just goes over and over and over in their head, and they have no idea who it's about or who it's by. And then also the only time the Undertaker has ever looked stupid was when he rolled out to Rollin' on a motorcycle. So
very true.
That's another thing from it. But then also like it's another thing like kind of like with Mushroom Head, where like they have albums where there are some songs on there, like Break Stuff was a mainstream hit. My brother, who his favorite band is The Band, loves that song. Like that shows how different the worlds are.
Yeah.
But he still loves it. But also, like, there's some songs that they have that are just really bad.
Yeah.
And I feel like there was things that Fred Durst did where he was like, oh, these other bands that we're playing shows with did this. It did really well. I need to do this to add a little diversity to our album. And you're like, nah, dude, we kind of just want to hear you rap. Like,
yeah, I love you. I love you, Limp Bizkit. There's no need for you to cover Ministry.
Yeah,
just like there was no need for Crazy Town to try and cover Refused. Like, just don't. Just don't.
Have you heard System of a Down's cover of the Wu-Tang Clan?
No.
I got to write that down too now.
It's on Spotify, I'm pretty sure. Hold on. It's
Wu-Tang.
No, that's not it.
Now I'm very interested in hearing that now.
Yeah.
That is a wild, like, does he do all 9 of the rappers? Like, how does that work? I mean, I know not all 9 of them sing.
It may not be. Hold on. System of a Down, Wu-Tang. I'm just going to type in Wu and see what comes up. Oh, they covered the song Shame.
Oh, okay. I know that one. We can't say them lyrics on here, but I know that one. Yeah, we'll do that.
Oddly enough, Wu-Tang is on it, and also kind of suspicious, and oddly enough, System says the same thing. I don't write the rules for that. They are a median. It is a minority, but I don't know how all that works necessarily. That's kind of one where I heard it and I was like,
that's something that you get into these days without being racist, and you're just fucked. It's like, God damn, dude, don't do that shit, man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We're in a completely new world. It's
absolutely.
It's pretty wild.
So we talked about Fred being like, the constant criticism, but what about the genre in the whole? Because I feel like the whole genre of nu metal is constantly criticized. And I know we spoke a little bit about this in the beginning, but why though? Like, why was it so cool to hate just nu metal? I don't understand it. I never will. You ask people, they never give you a solid answer. Not like you, because you're a fan, but people that hate it, they never have a solid answer for this, and it drives me nuts.
I think a lot of people dislike nu metal because it's not, it originally came out and was hated so much because it was making a profit off of trauma and all the different things that people are already writing songs about. But instead of putting, your sexual assault experience in a metaphor, it's Jonathan Davis screaming about how his father molested him, very open and forwardly. So it took things you were not supposed to hear or support. Well, not to say that that's supporting that in a way that is very uncomfortable. And I feel like a lot of people, unless you really listen to music, and that's like your thing, is like, I like to find new music.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't like that a song would come on the radio that would make them genuinely uncomfortable. And that's what the whole genre was, is I had to go through this. So now I'm going to tell you about it, but it's not for you to figure out. I'm going to tell you exactly what the fuck happened. And we're going to make the music sound like the experience I had.
I think that probably has something to do with it. I definitely think that there was a catharsis that came with that first Korn album, which we all know that anger and sadness are probably two of the easiest human emotions to mimic. That's how serial killers and sociopaths get along as long as they do. So whereas Korn was very heartfelt and honest in the emotions that they were feeling, I kind of think some of the bands that came on after the fact, right, aping that style, that sound, whatever, you're kind of like, well, you can tell, your lizard brain can tell when it's not genuine, and maybe that was part of it. I mean, like, you look at, I'm going to go way off the reservation here. You look at an artist, a modern artist, and I know I'm going to say her name wrong, Christine Hayter, so Lingua Ignata. If you've ever seen some of her stuff, she collaborates with The Body. She collaborates with Full of Hell. It's very
no, yeah, I do know who you're talking about.
It's very difficult to listen to because you can tell she's legitimately working through some stuff. That's her art. But then you have bands faking being angry, and I think that was where kind of people were like, this is kind of cheesy. And not to mention the fact, to your point, Adam, you opened up the episode talking about how nu metal was made by the kids who considered themselves freaks, right? So with the ascension of Follow the Leader to MTV's TRL, right? And with that popularity, you have the kids who define themselves as being freaks and finding their own thing, right? Their own niche, whatever it is. Now that niche becomes the popular kids as well. So here I was being made fun of for wearing a mesh shirt and giant Jenkos. And now the jock who used to beat me up has a Korn t-shirt on, has Jenkos on, and he's still beating me up. It's like, something I liked was co-opted, which happens with every major popular culture, right? That's just the way humans work in the aggregate. But I think that also had something to do with it too. The people who were outsiders didn't realize that they were still outsiders, but now they were outsiders in the same pool that of everybody else, and it's just not a good feeling.
It's because people want to claim that they are into something. The difference is being into something because it's popular and being into something because it's genuine. And I wasn't in high school until 2008. So middle school, high school, all that days, I had my little, skinny jean scene phase, and I got bullied for that. But, I never had the popularity rise of what I was into necessarily. So I didn't experience the whole getting bullied by the people who claimed to be into what I was into, outside of a hardcore show, because that happens. But
yeah, it's part of the game, right?
Yeah, right. Jeez, you pay your dues, whatever. I never had to deal with that, but it is a weird dynamic shift to be a part of something that in it of itself is a movement of building this community out of nothing but shared experiences, and which is any community, but the experiences you were sharing were so much more vulnerable than oh, I played baseball growing up, you did too, fuck yeah, man, high five. It's so much deeper because the cuts that you're talking about lend a lot more blood, and I feel like that was a part of the reason why even people in, the scene, heavier music genre scenes don't like nu metal, is because it is so different And I feel like a lot of people hate on it because they're drawn to it and they don't understand why. And that scares them. And then again, that's kind of the whole point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's just the kids that, like, you know, in their CD collection there was Korn, then you got Life is Peachy, and then you got all the other hits, and then they come to a hardcore show and they're like, no, never listened to it in my life. No, never did it. And then you go on their Spotify and it's like, sure, okay.
Oh, dude, I had friends that were in like the metal and hardcore scenes that would come over to my house, and I'd like play a Slipknot song, and they'd be like, oh, dude, he like screams. And I'm like, are you fucking high? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think Slipknot is? Like, what?
Yeah.
And it's so crazy to like, and I think that's another thing is in, you know, metal and hardcore, there's almost like there's a weird system with that where if a band gets big, suddenly the underground is like, nah, we're not about it anymore. I'm like, okay, so did you like want them to just stay playing garages, or did you want to actually, you only support them until your support isn't 100% necessary?
Yeah. It's kind of like you guys getting signed to Sony and me and Jay going, fuck that band. Like, they're too big now. Like, what?
Right? It just
like,
doesn't make...
It makes no sense, and I never got that, like, well, okay, we're going to get paid for something we love, so all of a sudden everybody's pissed off now? Like, why?
It's
kind of like when Metallica cut their hair and all of a sudden they're sellouts now. It's like,
it's a weird cultural anachronism, right? Where people get mad at Adam for signing to E1 Sony, right? And but why though? Because you think you're supposed to get mad at Adam. Did you really want Adam to like suffer playing at a show that's a matinee in Philly he drove 8 hours for out of the way to a crowd of what was probably 25 people, maybe 30 if that much? I mean, no, you want them to be successful, and it's part of it's, you know, jealousy. Part of it is just
that's what I was going to say. It kind of goes back to people being mad at new metal because it's a jealousy thing. Like, let's be real here. Cold Chamber was huge, but they weren't that good. I mean, they were pretty terrible.
Big truck.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, but people hated on them because they were constantly, every Ozfest they were, you know, they start off as the opener, then they're the closer of the second stage, then they're opening the main stage. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just people hate on that shit because they're jealous, and I find that a lot.
A lot of people don't realize how awkward it is to record and perform things like that.
Yeah.
Like, we have a lot of new metal influence. We are not by any means on like the level of like the bands that we've said a million times in this whole thing. And like, there's a part in our record Sounds of Loss where I laugh. I have never been more uncomfortable in a vocal booth than having to fake laugh for something. And so like, when you start to think about like the whole jealousy and things of that, is also because like, chances are if you're really like a musician and you're like, nah, fuck new metal, you probably just don't have the guts. Like, legitimately. Yeah. And that's not to say for everyone, because there's definitely people out there that just don't like it. But like, if you're really hating on it, then it means that like you've never tried to do it and it sounds, you know, listenable, because it is to make something that's supposed to sound deliberately unpleasant and have that be like something you're supposed to hold a listener with is a very tricky nuance. Like, it's weird math. You know, you got to try to make 2 + 3 = 2. It just doesn't.
And you're right. It's that uncanny valley thing where the brain, the ear pick it up, and you can tell when it's disingenuous. You can tell when it's someone really just, you know, going through the motions. Where Tim and I were talking about the Korn VHS, right? Where they have the video of, you know, the first one, Who Then Now, where they have the video of Jonathan Davis crying in the vocal booth trying to get through the last song on Life is Peachy, which is...
I did not know that existed until today, so that's crazy.
Oh, you got to watch it, dude. It's wild. It is wild. But like that, you can tell that's honest, right? You can tell that's completely honest. Whereas,
you know,
some other guys maybe would not have that. I think you're right, Adam. It does come down to a little bit of balls, right? You got the balls to go in and be completely open and honest and let, you're going to, I hate to use this analogy, but there's no other way to do it. You're going to open that vein and you're going to let it out. And that's not something that many people would be comfortable doing. Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you go into a vocal booth and stand there with the pop screen and the headphones on and try to, especially like a genre like hardcore or metalcore or even metal, where you're supposed to grab the mic and it's a very visceral, physical experience, right? Trying to stand there and sing into it, almost like in the abstract. It's got to be weird, man.
I hate tracking vocals for that exact reason.
Okay.
Because all the muscle memory that you gain from adrenaline, energy, crowd, and literally down to like how you hold a mic affects how everything comes out.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like doing, holding it and moving around is such an inconsistent thing in terms of volume, pitch, and being able to put a magnifying glass on that is not easy. So you have to have like a stationary microphone most of the time. And it literally, like, I blow my voice out every time we track vocals because my body is just not used to that motion and that way of doing it. And so to even further the point of how professional some of those guys are, to be able to go in and just do that shit and put out the records that they do and be able to put the truly uncomfortable things in there. And it's not only that, but like, in today's world, I'd be nervous putting a picture I drew of a circle on the internet because who knows who's going to say what about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you take that and then you take, instead, let's put, 11 songs that you've been writing and mastering and obsessing over for a year and let anyone say whatever they want about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a weird, masochistic
it's a good adjective. It's a good adjective. Tim and I were just talking about that, about how not only is art very personal, right? It is very personal, but it's also a product of its environment and of the time it was made. And the example Tim and I were using was the first Glassjaw album, which we both think is brilliant, right? But there's some what nowadays in today's cultural climate, there would be lyrics that could be considered problematic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But put it in context. You have a young guy, not even 20. I think he was like 18 or 19. Just got horribly dumped by his girlfriend, right? And he goes in and records an album. Well, at that age, with that life experience, how did you think the lyrics were going to come out? Yeah, they're going to be a little bit aggressive and misogynist and ill-placed because we go back to honesty and that raw emotion. And now people are like, oh, well, they should never play those songs live. It's like, no, art is a product of its time. It just is. And you have to view that it's not black or white. It's a gray nuance. And you need to view that art through the lens of when it was created. Not to excuse previous missteps, but give the guy a fucking break. If I was 19, sure. when I got dumped and I was 19, if you asked me to write an album, it would not have been a fun listen, right? And not at all.
No, yeah,
not at all.
It's definitely. I mean, it even goes back to, really any genre you look into. But it's funny how sometimes things were so prevalent then, and they just come right back full circle, like Straight Outta Compton from NWA.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where it's another one of those groundbreaking things where they were almost like, I don't want to say they were the new metal of their genre, but like in hip hop, you didn't have people expressing themselves that blatantly and that raw and that roughness. They were the first to come out and really put those political statements out there and make people, like me, a white person in Hendersonville, Tennessee, that's as close as I could possibly imagine feeling the intensity of everyday life in Compton back in the early 90s. Like, they made you realize what was absolutely happening out there. And you look back at it and you can even come to it now and look back and read the lyrics and you're like, holy shit, like, it's almost like they predicted it to just keep going on in the future.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you have art that is great for its time, and then you have great art that will
transcend
without actually changing shape be able to shift and be relevant in other ways.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. So, Adam, we've kept you almost 2 hours, so I just want one more question.
Go for it.
And we're in the new world, right? What's up next for you guys in Orthodox? What's coming?
I was just gonna say
what's the next steps? I mean, granted, once we get out of the house, right? What's the next steps?
Who knows? I mean, that's kind of the whole crazy thing with the pandemic is just like, obviously we're going to write music in this downtime. But we only got to do half of a tour off of this brand new record that we put out. So, you know, there's no telling what the actual plan will be until we can kind of see what opportunities are available. But, you know, ideally it's going to be to get out, play as many shows as we can to make up for lost time and keep pushing the new music.
Okay.
And we lied. There's one last one you got to answer.
Okay.
Top 5 new metal records of all time, and then we'll let you go.
This one's for you, Tim. We're gonna say System of a Down, self-titled, Toxicity, Feel This Album, Mesmerize, Hypnotize.
That's awesome.
There you go. He got you.
I love it.
He got you.
That's great, man.
All right, everybody. So to all our listeners, thanks again for tuning in. I hope you really enjoyed this. On behalf of Tim and myself, I want to thank Adam for coming on. Adam, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure. We look forward to having you back, especially when we do the system deep dives.
Yes, please have me back for that.
Absolutely.
On behalf of Tim and Adam and myself, I want to thank all of you listeners once again for tuning in. You can find us on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Our Facebook group is it's become all Limp Bizkit memes and updates, which has been pretty funny in and of itself. But I want to reach out and again, thank everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show and hope you tune in again. Once again, this is the New Breed Podcast. We'll see you next time.
All right.